The Unexpected Assignment. Staff Sergeant Marcus Ghost Rodriguez had seen plenty of impossible missions in his 12 years as a Navy SEAL, but nothing quite like this. The holographic briefing room aboard the USS Constellation felt surreal as Admiral Chen's image flickered before him, the woman's face grim despite being transmitted from Earth orbit some 40 light-years away. "Rodriguez, we're sending you down to Kepler 442b. Intelligence suggests a Zephyrian advance force has established a forward operating base in the northern continent's mountain range. We estimate roughly 200 hostiles, armed with plasma weaponry and energy shields." Marcus kept his expression neutral, though internally he was calculating odds. 200 aliens with advanced technology versus one human with conventional weapons. The math wasn't encouraging. Your mission is reconnaissance and sabotage. You have 24 hours to assess their capabilities, identify weaknesses, and if possible, disrupt their communications array. A full Marine battalion will arrive for the main assault once you've provided actionable intelligence. The Admiral paused, her eyes softening slightly. "Marcus, I won't lie to you. This is a suicide mission with extra steps. The Zephyrians have been steamrolling through our outer colonies for 6 months. Their technology is superior, their tactics are flawless, and they've never retreated from a single engagement. But you're the best we have, and Earth needs every advantage we can get." Marcus nodded once, sharp and decisive. "Understood, ma'am. When do I deploy?" "Immediately. Your drop pod is already loaded with 72 hours of supplies, though we're hoping you'll only need 24. Godspeed, Sergeant." The hologram winked out, leaving Marcus alone in the sterile white room. He gathered his gear methodically, checking each piece of equipment twice. His rifle, a modified M4A7 with armor-piercing rounds. His sidearm, a plasma-resistant ceramic knife, emergency medical supplies, and enough C4 to level a small building. Standard SEAL kit for an utterly non-standard mission. The drop pod bay hummed with activity as technicians made final preparations. The pod itself looked like a metallic coffin designed by someone with a particularly dark sense of humor. Marcus strapped himself in, watching through the small porthole as Kepler 442b grew larger beneath him. The planet was beautiful in an alien way, with swirling purple clouds and vast green oceans that reflected an orange sun. "Drop in T-minus 60 seconds, the bay controller announced over the comm. "Remember, Sergeant, stealth is your greatest weapon. The Zephyrians have never encountered human tactics before. Use that advantage." Marcus closed his eyes as the pod ejected, feeling the familiar sensation of free fall. The planet's atmosphere buffeted his tiny craft as automated systems guided him toward the landing zone, a forest clearing approximately 10 kilometers from the suspected alien base. The impact was harder than expected, and Marcus spent several minutes checking himself for injuries before popping the pod's emergency hatch. The alien forest was eerily quiet, with strange bird-like creatures flitting between trees that looked almost Earth-normal except for their blue-tinged bark. The air was thinner than Earth's, but breathable, with a faint metallic taste that made his nose wrinkle. He buried his drop pod under fallen branches and began the trek toward the Zephyrian base. According to orbital reconnaissance, the facility was built into a natural cave system, with minimal external structures visible. The aliens apparently preferred underground installations, which would make his job both easier and harder. Easier to approach unseen, harder to assess their full capabilities. The first hour passed without incident, as Marcus moved through the alien woodland, using every stealth technique learned over more than a decade of special operations. He paused frequently to listen, noting the subtle sounds of this world. Wind through strange leaves, the chittering of small creatures in the underbrush, the distant rumble of what might have been geological activity. By the second hour, he'd covered 6 kilometers and begun to detect signs of alien activity. Scorch marks on trees where plasma weapons had been tested, carved symbols in the blue-bark trees that might have been territorial markers or navigation aids. Most telling of all, the complete absence of native wildlife in a 2-kilometer radius around his target. Marcus activated his tactical recorder and began documenting everything. Earth's scientists would want detailed observations of Zephyrian behavior patterns, technology, and organizational structure. Even if he didn't survive the mission, this intelligence could prove crucial for future operations. The alien base came into view during his third-hour planetside, and Marcus immediately understood why the Zephyrians had chosen this location. The mountain formed a natural fortress, with sheer cliffs on 3 sides and only one viable approach through a narrow valley. Sensors and energy barriers would make any direct assault a nightmare for conventional forces. But as Marcus settled into an observation position behind a cluster of crystalline rocks, something felt wrong. The base was too quiet. No sentries visible, no patrol movements, no signs of the bustling activity you'd expect from a forward operating base. He spent 30 minutes watching through his scope, documenting defensive positions and counting weapon emplacements, but seeing no actual Zephyrians. Growing suspicious, Marcus began a careful approach toward the perimeter sensors. If the base was fully operational, these devices should detect him well before he could get close enough to matter. But he reached the outer sensor ring without triggering any alarms. And that's when he noticed something that made his blood run cold. The sensors were powered down, not damaged, not malfunctioning, but deliberately deactivated. Marcus had seen enough abandoned positions to recognize the signs, and this base had been evacuated recently. Very recently, based on the still-warm power cores he discovered during his infiltration. Inside the mountain facility, Marcus found confirmation of his worst fears. The Zephyrians had indeed been here, evidenced by the alien script carved into walls and the distinctive spiral patterns of their technology. But they'd packed up and left, taking everything of value and leaving only empty chambers and deactivated equipment. The communications array was still intact, though powered down. Marcus spent precious minutes bringing it online, using techniques learned during cross-training with Air Force signals intelligence specialists. When the system finally responded, the data it contained made his heart race. The Zephyrians hadn't just abandoned this base, they'd abandoned the entire planet. Every installation, every outpost, every forward position had been evacuated simultaneously. And according to the communications logs he could partially decode, they'd done it because of him. Not him personally, but what he represented. The aliens had detected his drop pod's entry into the atmosphere and identified it as a human insertion vehicle. They'd analyzed the implications of Earth sending a single operative against a fortified position and reached a conclusion that chilled Marcus to the bone. The Zephyrians were afraid of humans. The communication logs, translated through the pod's limited xenolinguistic software, painted a picture of alien commanders debating the significance of humanity's tactical decision. Why would Earth send one soldier against 200? What capabilities did this individual possess that made such a mission viable? What other surprises might humans deploy if their initial scout proved successful? Rather than risk finding out, they'd decided to withdraw and reassess their entire invasion strategy. 200 technologically superior aliens had fled from one human carrying conventional weapons, not because of what he might do, but because of what his presence implied about human capabilities. Marcus completed his mission objectives in record time, documenting the abandoned base, securing intelligence files, and preparing his report for the incoming Marine Battalion. But as he hiked back toward his extraction point, he couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted in the war between humanity and the Zephyrian Empire. For the first time since the invasion began, Earth had won a victory without firing a shot. The aliens had retreated not from superior firepower or brilliant tactics, but from fear of human unpredictability. They'd looked at the impossible mathematics of the mission and decided they didn't want to learn why Earth's military leaders thought it was possible. As Marcus activated his emergency beacon and settled in to wait for pickup, he wondered if the Zephyrians were right to be afraid. Humanity had always been at its most dangerous when backed into a corner, and sending one SEAL against an entire alien base was exactly the kind of calculated insanity that had gotten his species to the stars in the first place. The rescue shuttle arrived 6 hours ahead of schedule, carrying a full Marine reconnaissance team ready for a hot insertion into hostile territory. Instead, they found one very confused Navy SEAL sitting in an empty forest, holding intelligence files that would change the entire course of the war. "So let me get this straight," Colonel Hayes said as they lifted off toward the USS Constellation. "You scared away 200 aliens just by showing up?" Marcus shrugged, checking his gear one final time. "Apparently, ma'am, though I think it had more to do with what they thought I might be capable of than anything I actually did." The colonel laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Rodriguez, do you realize what this means? The Zephyrians have been studying our tactics, our psychology, our entire approach to warfare, and they've concluded that humans are unpredictable enough to be genuinely dangerous." "Is that good or bad, ma'am?" "That," Colonel Hayes said, staring out at the alien stars, "depends entirely on what we do next." The ripple effect. 3 weeks after Marcus Rodriguez's impossible mission, the war had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Admiral Chen sat in the Strategic Planning Center aboard Earth's orbital command station, surrounded by displays showing Zephyrian fleet movements across 17 star systems. What she saw defied every military doctrine she'd studied in her 30-year career. The aliens were retreating everywhere. "Report," she commanded, as General Morrison materialized via hologram from the Tau Ceti front. "Ma'am, it's unlike anything we've seen. The Zephyrians evacuated 3 more colony worlds overnight, including their primary logistics hub in the Kepler system. They're not just pulling back, they're completely abandoning positions we thought were strategically vital." Admiral Chen studied the tactical displays, noting the pattern of withdrawal. "Any explanation for this behavior?" "Intelligence suggests they're consolidating forces around their core worlds, but the reasoning doesn't make tactical sense. Some of these positions took them months to establish, and they're abandoning them without a fight." Dr. Sarah Kim, the fleet's leading xenopsychologist, leaned forward from her console. "Admiral, I believe Sergeant Rodriguez's mission created something we've never seen before in Zephyrian behavior: uncertainty." The Admiral turned to face the scientist. "Explain." "The Zephyrians are a hierarchical species with rigid behavioral patterns. They plan meticulously, execute flawlessly, and adapt slowly. Our intelligence files show they've never encountered a military force that operates like humans do." Dr. Kim activated a 3-dimensional display showing human and Zephyrian tactical patterns. "Look at this analysis. Zephyrian warfare follows predictable patterns. They gather intelligence, plan extensively, commit overwhelming force, and achieve victory through superior technology and coordination. It's methodical, efficient, and highly effective." The display shifted to show human military history. "Human warfare is completely different. We improvise constantly, take impossible risks, commit forces in ways that shouldn't work mathematically, and somehow achieve victory through sheer audacity. To the Zephyrians, our entire approach to conflict appears chaotic and unpredictable." General Morrison's hologram frowned. "But surely they've had time to analyze our tactics by now. 6 months of warfare should have given them enough data." "That's exactly the problem," Dr. Kim replied. "Every time they think they understand our capabilities, we do something that shouldn't be possible." Rodriguez's mission was the breaking point. From their perspective, Earth sent one soldier to accomplish what should have required a battalion. The fact that we thought this was viable terrifies them. Admiral Chen studied the implications. They're wondering what else we're capable of that they haven't seen yet. Precisely. And rather than risk discovering our hidden capabilities the hard way, they're pulling back to reassess their entire strategy. Meanwhile, aboard the USS Leyte Gulf, Marcus Rodriguez was discovering that his sudden fame came with unexpected complications. Every military leader in the fleet wanted to debrief him, every scientist wanted to study his mission reports, and every journalist wanted to interview the man who'd scared away an alien army without firing a shot. "Sergeant Rodriguez," Lieutenant Commander Patel said as she entered the ship's briefing room where Marcus had been answering questions for the past 4 hours. "We need to discuss your next assignment." Marcus looked up from his coffee, noting the excited gleam in the officer's eyes. "Ma'am, Command wants to replicate your success. We're planning a series of similar insertions across Zephyrian-held territory. Single operatives, impossible odds, maximum psychological impact. With respect, ma'am, I'm not sure it will work the same way twice. The element of surprise is gone." Lieutenant Commander Patel smiled. "That's where you're wrong, Sergeant. Intelligence intercepts suggest the Zephyrians are more confused now than they were before your mission. They're trying to understand the logic behind sending one soldier against impossible odds and failing to find any." She activated a holographic display showing recent Zephyrian communications translated into English. "Listen to this. This is from a Zephyrian field commander to his superiors. The humans demonstrate capabilities that exceed mathematical probability. Request immediate reassessment of enemy tactical doctrine and available technologies. Current force projections may be inadequate." Marcus read through more intercepted communications, each one showing increasing Zephyrian anxiety about human capabilities. "They think we have some kind of secret weapon." "The secret weapon is us," Lieutenant Commander Patel replied. "Specifically, our willingness to attempt missions that make no logical sense. Every time we do something that shouldn't work but does, it reinforces their belief that they're missing something crucial about human capabilities." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from Fleet Command. Admiral Chen's voice filled the briefing room through the ship's communication system. "All commands, this is Admiral Chen. We've detected massive Zephyrian fleet movements in the Alpha Centauri system. Initial analysis suggests they're abandoning their primary staging area and falling back toward their home territory. Effective immediately, all human forces are to maintain current positions and observe. Do not pursue. Repeat, do not pursue." Marcus and Lieutenant Commander Patel exchanged glances. The retreat was accelerating. In the depths of space, aboard the Zephyrian command vessel Harmonious Victory, Supreme Commander Veltar struggled with a problem that had no precedent in his species' military history. The humans were proving to be an enemy unlike any other the Zephyrian Empire had encountered in 3 centuries of expansion. "Analysis report," he commanded in the harmonic tones of his native language. Science Officer Kethva approached with obvious reluctance. "Supreme Commander, our xenopsychology teams cannot explain human tactical behavior. Their decisions appear to follow no logical pattern, yet they consistently achieve results that exceed probability matrices." Veltar's crest flattened against his skull, a sign of deep concern among his kind. "Elaborate." The incident at Kepler 442b is representative of a broader pattern. Humans consistently commit insufficient forces to achieve impossible objectives, yet somehow succeed. Our analysts believe they possess technologies or capabilities we have not identified. What technologies could allow one individual to neutralize a fortified position? Unknown, Supreme Commander. Possibilities include advanced camouflage systems, molecular disruption weapons, temporal manipulation devices, or psychological warfare techniques beyond our understanding. The humans may have developed capabilities that exceed our own technological advancement. Veltar considered this. The Zephyrian Empire had built its expansion on the foundation of technological superiority. If humans possessed unknown technologies that could negate that advantage, the entire strategic situation required reevaluation. Recommendations? Withdraw to defensive positions around core worlds. Gather intelligence on human capabilities through extended observation. Avoid direct engagement until we understand their true technological level. The Supreme Commander made his decision with the careful deliberation characteristic of his species. Issue fleet-wide withdrawal orders. All forces are to consolidate around primary worlds for defensive operations. Science Division is to prioritize analysis of human technological capabilities. Back in human space, the effects of this decision rippled through the fleet. Colonies that had been under siege for months suddenly found themselves free. Supply lines that had been cut were restored. Human forces found themselves in the unprecedented position of winning a war they'd been losing badly just weeks before. But in the classified briefings that followed, military leaders grappled with an uncomfortable truth. They weren't winning because of superior tactics or technology. They were winning because the enemy had convinced itself that humans possessed capabilities they didn't actually have. Marcus Rodriguez found himself at the center of this strange victory, wondering if he'd saved humanity or simply postponed an inevitable defeat. The Zephyrians would eventually figure out that humans had no secret weapons, no hidden technologies, no special advantages beyond a willingness to attempt the impossible. When that happened, the war would resume, and next time, the aliens would be prepared for human unpredictability. Dr. Kim presented her final analysis to Admiral Chen in a closed session, her conclusions both encouraging and terrifying. Admiral, we've created a psychological advantage that could last months or even years. The Zephyrians are convinced we possess capabilities we don't actually have, and they'll spend enormous resources trying to identify these non-existent technologies. And when they realize we're bluffing? Then we'd better hope we've used this time to develop actual advantages, Dr. Kim replied grimly. Because when they come back, they'll be ready for everything they think we can do. The war had entered a new phase, one where perception mattered more than reality. Humanity had bought itself time through sheer audacity, but time was all they'd gained. The question now was whether they could use it wisely. The final gambit. 6 months after the Kepler incident, Marcus Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of humanity's newest warship, the UES Defiance, watching construction crews put finishing touches on weapons systems that didn't exist when the war began. The ship represented everything humanity had learned from their unexpected reprieve, incorporating technologies reverse-engineered from abandoned Zephyrian equipment and innovations born from desperation. Impressive, isn't she? Admiral Chen joined him at the viewport, her reflection ghost-like in the reinforced glass. Adaptive armor plating, quantum-encrypted communications, and plasma weaponry that matches anything the Zephyrians field. Marcus nodded, but his expression remained troubled. It's not going to be enough, is it, ma'am? Probably not, the Admiral admitted with characteristic honesty. Intelligence suggests the Zephyrians have figured out our bluff. Their probe attacks in the outer systems have become increasingly aggressive. They're testing our responses, cataloging our actual capabilities. She handed him a data tablet containing the latest intelligence reports. They know we don't have miracle weapons or impossible technologies. What they still don't understand is why that doesn't matter. Marcus scrolled through the reports, noting the pattern of Zephyrian probing attacks. They're being methodical again, back to their old tactics. Yes, but with modifications. They've learned to account for human unpredictability in their planning. Extended contingency matrices, flexible response protocols, over-engineered solutions to counter capabilities they think we might possess. A communication alert interrupted their conversation. Lieutenant Commander Patel's voice echoed through the ship's comm system. Admiral Chen to the Situation Room, Priority Alpha. They found the Situation Room buzzing with activity as analysts processed data from deep space reconnaissance drones. The main display showed a tactical overview of the Proxima Centauri system, humanity's nearest colonial outpost and current front line in the war. Report, Admiral Chen commanded. Ma'am, long-range sensors detect a massive Zephyrian fleet approaching Proxima Centauri. Preliminary count suggests over 300 ships, including their newest Dreadnought-class vessels, estimated arrival in 18 hours. The Admiral studied the display, noting the fleet composition. Analysis? Dr. Kim stepped forward from her workstation. This represents the largest Zephyrian force concentration we've observed. Intelligence suggests it includes their newest technologies, developed specifically to counter perceived human capabilities. They're not taking any chances this time. General Morrison appeared via hologram from the Proxima Defense Command. Admiral, we have 47 ships in the system, plus orbital defense platforms. Against a fleet that size, with their technological advantages restored, we're looking at a complete rout. Evacuation status? Civilian population is being loaded onto transports now, but we won't have everyone off-world before they arrive. We need at least 36 hours. Admiral Chen considered the tactical situation. Mathematics and logic suggested the same conclusion reached by every analysis program in the fleet. Proxima Centauri was lost, along with 50,000 civilians who couldn't be evacuated in time. Ma'am, Marcus said quietly, I have an idea, but you're not going to like it. The Admiral turned to face him. I'm listening. What if we give them what they expect? They're prepared for human unpredictability, but they're over-prepared. They've built contingencies for capabilities we don't possess. What if we turn that against them? Dr. Kim looked intrigued. Explain. Marcus activated the tactical display and began sketching out a battle plan that defied every principle of naval warfare. They expect us to do something impossible, so we do exactly that. We take our entire available fleet, everything we can muster, and we attack their formation head-on. That's suicide, General Morrison protested. We're outnumbered 6-1. Exactly. It's so obviously impossible that they'll assume we have a secret weapon or hidden advantage. They'll hold back, wait for us to reveal our trump card, try to identify the trap before committing their full strength. Admiral Chen studied the plan, recognizing the dangerous logic behind it. You're proposing to use their caution against them. More than that, ma'am. I'm proposing we bet everything on the idea that they've become so afraid of human unpredictability that they'll defeat themselves trying to counter threats that don't exist. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. It was the Kepler gambit writ large, risking the entire human fleet on the psychological impact of doing something that made no tactical sense. There's one more element, Marcus continued. We need to make it personal. The Zephyrians respond to hierarchical challenges. If I can get aboard their flagship during the battle, if I can confront their supreme commander face-to-face, it will reinforce their belief that this assault is part of some larger human strategy they don't understand. You want to board a Zephyrian dreadnought in the middle of a fleet engagement? Lieutenant Commander Patel said slowly. Alone. Yes, ma'am. While our fleet engages their perimeter forces, I'll use a stealth pod to penetrate their formation and board their command ship. Even if I don't accomplish anything tactically, the psychological impact will be enormous. From their perspective, humans will have once again attempted something impossible. Admiral Chen looked around the room, noting the expressions of her senior staff: fear, excitement, and a growing sense that Marcus might actually be right. Dr. Kim, analysis? The xenopsychologist consulted her data tablets before responding. The psychological profile supports this approach. Zephyrian military doctrine emphasizes caution when facing unknown variables. If we present them with a scenario that appears to violate tactical logic, their response will be to seek the hidden advantage rather than exploit the obvious weakness. General Morrison? The general's hologram flickered as he processed the implications. It's completely insane, which means it might actually work. The Zephyrians have been preparing for logical human responses. They won't be prepared for us to double down on apparent suicide tactics. Admiral Chen made her decision with the same gut instinct that had gotten humanity to the stars. Do it. Alert all commands. We're committing every available ship to the defense of Proxima Centauri. And, Sergeant Rodriguez, you're cleared for your boarding mission. 18 hours later, the human fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 73 ships arrayed in a textbook battle line directly facing the massive Zephyrian armada. It was a sight that should have filled any military commander with pride, right up until the moment when basic mathematics made clear it was also a perfect demonstration of tactical suicide. Aboard the Zephyrian flagship Eternal Dominion, Supreme Commander Veltar stared at his tactical displays in growing confusion. The human fleet was beautiful in its precision, terrifying in its apparent confidence, and completely inexplicable in its strategic positioning. Analysis, he commanded. Supreme Commander, the human fleet has positioned itself for a direct engagement. Their formation suggests they intend to match our force strength to strength. Impossible. They are outnumbered by more than 6-1. What reinforcements have they committed? None detected, Supreme Commander. This appears to be their entire available fleet. Veltar's crest flattened completely. Then explain their tactical logic. His science officer hesitated. There is no logical explanation, Supreme Commander, unless they possess capabilities we have not identified. The stealth technologies? Possibly. Or weapon systems beyond our analysis. Or strategic reserves we cannot detect. The humans have consistently demonstrated capabilities that exceed their apparent technological level. Veltar considered his options. The prudent response would be to probe the human formation, test their defenses, identify their hidden advantages before committing to full engagement. It was the tactical approach that had served the Zephyrian Empire well for centuries. Deploy reconnaissance formations, probe their perimeter defenses, identify their hidden capabilities before engaging with primary fleet elements. The battle began with cautious Zephyrian probes against the human formation, exactly as Marcus had predicted. While the main fleets maneuvered against each other, his stealth pod slipped through the chaos of the engagement, invisible to sensors focused on larger threats. Boarding the Zephyrian flagship proved easier than expected, as security systems designed to detect invasion forces completely ignored a single human in a maintenance pod. Marcus made his way through the alien ship's corridors, following schematic data gathered from abandoned Zephyrian facilities. The ship's bridge was a marvel of organic architecture, with flowing curves and harmonic resonance chambers that served as both decoration and functional elements of the command structure. Supreme Commander Veltar stood at its center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the ongoing engagement. Supreme Commander, Marcus announced himself in carefully practiced Zephyrian, causing every alien on the bridge to freeze in shock. Veltar turned slowly, his large eyes focusing on the human who had somehow appeared in the most secure location of his flagship. How did you penetrate our defenses? The same way I neutralized your base on Kepler 442b, Marcus replied, allowing the aliens to draw their own conclusions about capabilities he didn't possess. State your purpose. Marcus smiled, knowing the expression would translate poorly to Zephyrian psychology. I'm here to offer terms for your surrender. The bridge erupted in harmonic chittering as the alien crew processed this statement. A lone human, who had somehow infiltrated their most secure vessel during active combat, was offering terms to a fleet that outnumbered his forces 6-1. You speak of surrender while your fleet faces annihilation? Look at your tactical displays, Supreme Commander. Your forces have been engaging mine for 2 hours. How many human ships have you destroyed? Veltar glanced at the displays. Noting with growing alarm that despite overwhelming numerical and technological advantages, his forces had achieved minimal results against the human formation. Every probe had been repelled, every attack had been countered, every attempt to identify human secret weapons had failed to reveal anything. "Your ships fight with unexpected effectiveness," he admitted. "Because you're fighting ghosts," Marcus replied. "You're so convinced we possess capabilities you can't detect that you're not using the capabilities you do possess. Your fleet could destroy ours in minutes if you committed to full engagement. But you won't, because you're afraid of what we might do in response." The truth of the statement hit Veltar like a physical blow. The humans had once again manipulated Zephyrian caution, turning their own tactical doctrine against them. "You offer surrender terms?" "Mutual withdrawal. Your forces retreat to pre-war boundaries. Both sides commit to negotiated settlement rather than continued military action. You get to avoid discovering what other surprises humanity might deploy, and we get to avoid finding out whether your caution has limits." Veltar considered the proposal, realizing that the human was offering him a way to end the war without losing face or risking further exposure to unknown human capabilities. "And if I refuse?" Marcus shrugged. "Then you'll have to live with the consequences of whatever we do next. And Supreme Commander, given our track record, do you really want to find out what that might be?" The Zephyrian leader looked at his tactical displays one final time, noting how his overwhelming force advantage had somehow failed to translate into tactical success. The mathematics were clear, the logic was inescapable, and yet the results made no sense. Unless the humans really did possess capabilities beyond Zephyrian understanding. "I will consider your terms," Veltar announced. Marcus nodded respectfully. "I'll wait in my ship for your answer. You have 1 hour." He departed as mysteriously as he'd arrived, leaving the Zephyrian command staff to contemplate the impossible situation they found themselves in. They had technological superiority, numerical advantage, and strategic position. But somehow, none of it mattered against an enemy that consistently achieved impossible results through sheer audacity. 57 minutes later, the Zephyrian fleet began its withdrawal from Proxima Centauri. The war was over, ended not by superior firepower or brilliant strategy, but by one species' willingness to attempt the impossible and another's inability to believe anyone could be that reckless without hidden advantages. Marcus Rodriguez returned to Earth as the man who had ended humanity's first interstellar war without firing a shot, twice. The victory parades and medal ceremonies would come later, but for now, he was content to sit in Admiral Chen's office, drinking real coffee and watching the stars through the observation port. "So what happens now?" he asked. "Now we hope the peace lasts long enough for us to actually develop the capabilities the Zephyrians think we already have," Admiral Chen replied. "Because sooner or later someone's going to call our bluff." Marcus smiled, thinking about the look on Supreme Commander Veltar's face when he'd realized the truth. Maybe. But until then, let them wonder what humans might be capable of. In my experience, the fear of the unknown is often more powerful than the unknown itself. Outside the viewport, construction crews worked on humanity's newest starships, building a fleet capable of backing up the reputation for impossible achievements that had saved their species. The war was over, but the legend of human unpredictability would live on, a psychological weapon more powerful than any plasma cannon or energy shield. And somewhere in the depths of space, Zephyrian analysts continued their fruitless search for the secret technologies that had allowed humans to achieve victory against impossible odds, never suspecting that the only secret was an unwillingness to accept that anything was truly impossible.